Dr. Glover, 63% of men under 30 are single, and a majority of them aren't even trying to date. Why do you think that is?
Oh man, we'll just dive right in here with good stuff. And let's add to that a great majority of those guys report not having had sex in the last year. How about that? Um, you know what? I think we're dealing with a perfect storm of a number of factors going on. And we can probably take this whole interview and just work on that question. I think that's a crisis. What you've described is that men are reporting not being in a relationship. Men, if they do get married, are getting married later. I'm not advocating that marriage is something that everybody should do, but just statistically, people are not getting into longer-term intimate relationships. And if they do, they get into them at a later age. They don't stay in them very long, and a lot of guys are just not. How they usually report it is they have not been in a significant relationship in like the last 12 months, kind of thing. And then a significant number of those guys also report not having sex, which I'm not saying that all young men should be in a relationship, but I think they should all be having sex. I think we'll just dive in. I think Mother Nature wants 16 and 18-year-olds having sex. I don't think she wants us 70-year-olds having sex. My DNA just isn't as in a good a shape as an 18-year-old's is. So it seems like it's a crime against nature that young men are not having access. They're not getting connected to women, and they don't have access to sex. And I think a number of factors are playing in. Let me just rattle off 4 or 5 that I think might be contributing. One, I think, is that a lot of men have never grown up. And it's not their fault. I say that they're still hanging out in the nursery. They've not experienced what we might call a masculine initiation or rites of passage, where they were taken out of the nursery, where everything's easy and given to them and pushed to them and nothing's required of them. And they've not been initiated into the challenging masculine world of where they get shit done and they do it well. Many men have not had that experience. We haven't gotten that from our fathers. We haven't gotten it from our culture, from society. And so a lot of men, as I mentioned, I say they're still hanging out in the nursery where nothing's real challenging. They can surf the internet all day. They can be on their cell phones. They can be, going like this on Instagram, or maybe they're like this on Hinge or Tinder, but they're not actually, meeting any of those women. Everything is pushed. Their porn is pushed to them. Their information is pushed to them. Their food is pushed to them with Uber Eats. They don't even have to learn how to drive anymore. You can just get Uber to take you anywhere. And again, I get there's a lot of cultural shifts going on, a lot of them created by these things right here. But because young men don't have much required of them, they're not actually in a position where either they have the experience, the courage, the skill set, or desire to approach women and engage with them. And because they maybe don't have a lot going on in their life that would actually attract women and make women think, oh, yeah, that guy's got something going on. I want to find out more about him. So they're just not attracting women as well. So a lot of men, they just aren't engaging. They're not attracting. And I think another piece we'll throw in is that I think a lot of women are shying away from dating and relationship. Feminism has told women that relationships aren't important. Career's the only thing that's important. Go get a degree, go get your career. Companies like Meta pay women to freeze their eggs when they're in their 20s and 30s so they can work through their child-producing years. Yeah, me too. I had that same look when I was told that. So they pay them to freeze their eggs so they can keep them working because, the women, they're career-oriented. And so then they get the other side of 40 and all of a sudden go, well, I think I'm ready to, get married and have a kid. And then none of the men they want them, when they're 40-something. They've, been focused on a career. Now they want to find a guy that, will be, their baby daddy for them. So I think there's one piece. I think a lot of women are, maybe they don't think they have much to pick from in terms of the men, in terms of relationship. Maybe the few, the really good men out there have their choice and they don't have to settle down with just one woman. And I talk to so many guys that they're afraid of interacting with women as well because they're afraid anything they do is going to get posted on the woman's, social media accounts, and they may get blasted. They may be accused of things. If the woman breaks up with them, they may flame them. And so a lot of guys don't want to get involved with that. And so a lot of women aren't making themselves real accessible either. And then I think another piece that plays into this is the technology itself. I mean, we're talking to each other because of amazing technology. You're in a beautiful place in Hawaii. I'm in a beautiful place in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico. Technology lets us have these conversations. You can put them on your YouTube channel, on Spotify, whatever. I can promote them on my social media, my YouTube. So the technology is great to let us do a lot. And so nowadays there's a technology. Men can get on YouTube and, listen to dating gurus and find out how to pick up women. They go to a dating or pickup boot camp. They can get all the skills. They can get on the apps on their phone. They can find the women. The women can get the apps on their phone. We got all social media to talk to each other. So we've got all the technology to connect, and nobody's connecting. Now, I call it the hookup culture. So what happens is if a guy gets actually good enough to get women, he don't want to just settle with one. He want, I'm good at this now. And if I settle with that one woman, I mean, she may be pretty good woman. I like her. She's attractive. But I see that other woman, and she's younger, and she's hotter. And if I'm with her, I can't be with her unless I convince her that we should be polyamorous, which that does tend to be the trend nowadays. And it's funny, as more people are polyamorous, fewer people are having sex. I still don't know what's going on there. So, but for the guys, it's a FOMO, fear of missing out. If I get with one woman, I'll miss out on all those other young, hot cuties over there that I see walking around. They're at the mall. They're in their Lululemon. They look good. They're on my Instagram page. They're on, my OnlyFans. I don't want to miss that. So it's a FOMO. On the other hand, the women are getting attention all the time, maybe to their OnlyFans page, to their Instagram page. They're getting likes. They're getting men hitting them up. And if a woman goes, if I just pick this one guy, I'm going to have to let go of all that attention I get from all those other men over there. And I don't want to let go of all that attention I get because this one guy, it won't be enough and he might disappoint me. So nobody ever actually makes a commitment or a decision to let's really give this thing a try, right? And see where it takes us. So I just think there's a lot of factors going on that it's easy to hook up, but nobody's actually getting together. And again, for whatever reason, nobody's actually having sex. Hey, maybe let's throw porn in there as well. If a guy can get nice, easy, safe sex anytime he wants it, no demand put on him, he never loses his erection. He never comes too quickly. He never disappoints the woman. Why would he go risk having to be with a real live human being that she might be disappointed, or he might be not good enough, or he has to put up with her emotional drama just to be able to have sex with her. So again, maybe there's a whole lot of factors going on, but probably because you're in that younger generation, you probably even have maybe a clearer picture of it than I do, because I'm just kind of looking at it from the outside from people I talk to. But I think there's a number of factors that are contributing to that situation.
100%. There's a menu of items that are contributing, and it's sort of a you can't just single out one and say this is the primary causation.
Probably not. Probably.
But one thing that you touched on that's absolutely true is that your devices and your screens, social media, the internet in general, can connect people for good, and it can also connect people for bad. A lot of people my age have developed sort of parasocial relationships with influencers and things like this, and you can do the same thing with pornography. I would assume, because you sort of scratch the itch of connection and you scratch the itch of sex and all these things without having to, put up with the emotional needs of the woman and do all of this stuff. It's the perceived benefit of having a girlfriend, wife, or boyfriend, husband, whatever, without the actual benefit, which is you have an emotional support system, you have somebody to experience life with, all of these things.
And there's to challenge you to grow and support
exactly
that growth. Yeah,
exactly. One quote that I love from you is men want the benefits of masculinity or being masculine without taking the risks. And it's sort of the same thing with, I want the benefits of being in a relationship without taking the risks. I don't want to open myself up emotionally. I don't want to have to, provide or learn how to take care of a family or learn how to drive or whatever it is. Uh, I would like to elicit from you what you think the risks are, the perceived risks at least, for somebody maybe watching this who's in their early 20s or even late teens, and they go, well, I don't want to date. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Why do you think that is?
Well, and I think even though I say a lot of men haven't gotten out of the nursery, I think there's a lot of guys that also, well, I want to focus on my career. I really want to build up my business. And I want to be a digital nomad. I want to be able to travel. And I suspect you're a digital nomad. And technically I am as well, even though I own a home here. But I can take my laptop and go anywhere and do my job. And so I think a lot of young men really want to focus on career. And that's great. And maybe that's a good thing. At a young age, with all the tools that are available for people to go out and create something and put it out into the world and market it and make a living doing it. I love it. That's what I do. All right. And so there may be sometimes guys just want to focus on their careers, but I think there's also a lot of guys that just don't want to quit playing video games and looking at porn and having to get out and do something that is risky, that scares them. And again, a lot of times I think for most men, maybe unless you grew up with like attractive sisters or something, most men are intimidated by women we're attracted to. And most of us have to learn the skills to do that. And most of us, including me, but I think in most generations, no, I mean, at least your generations, you can watch YouTube videos of how to talk to women. That stuff didn't exist when I was young. I had no clue how to talk to women until I was in my 40s. And I'd already been married twice by that time. And so a lot of times it's just I think if you could get enough of your needs met without too much effort, again, if you can get food delivered to you, you don't have to learn to cook. If you can get Uber to drive you, you don't have to learn to drive. If you can look at porn, you don't have to learn how to have sex. If you can get some degree of social connection through social media, you don't have to learn how to actually talk to people. And I think what you're actually, kind of alluding to in that context is that Mother Nature wired certain things into us for our survival. And some of the things that are wired into us is the need to connect with other people. She also wired into us sex drives, i.e., put penis in vagina. She wired into us a desire to eat carbs. So if we found carbs, because our ancestors who were hunting and gathering, if they found carbs, they only existed certain times of the year. It's not like you can go to Costco, right, and just get strawberries and blueberries all year round. Back then, for maybe 1 month out of the year, they got really nice carbs. So Mother Nature rewarded them for eating the carbs. It released a lot of feel-good hormones when they ate carbs, and they got fat, and they carried that fat for the rest of the year. Now we eat carbs all the time and carry that fat for the rest of the year. And so those things that Mother Nature wired into us with a reward system, connecting with other people, having sex, eating carbs, are what modern society and business have basically preyed upon. I had an iPhone 1. I stood in line and got the very first iPhone that came out, like 16 years ago or whatever it was. iPhone 1 did not have apps on it. There were no apps. It was the iPhone 2, the second iOS that came out, where you had apps. I go, what are these for? What good are these going to be? And it's not really our phones that are addictive. It's the apps that are on our phone. It's the Facebook. It's the Instagram. For me, it's like websites that have ESPN.com, sports scores, or I can just go scroll and, get instant sports news. The messaging, the WhatsApp, Signal, iMessage, all that stuff just keeps us, constantly. But what happens, whether it's apps on our phone, the constant carbs in the grocery stores and restaurants, or the porn we can watch online, all of them give us the same hit of dopamine and other reward chemicals that Mother Nature really wants to give us of when we connect with a real live human being and have an intimate relationship or conversation, or we do something together that's meaningful, or we have sex together, or we find those carbs one time a year, for a month. all those reward systems built into us are just getting activated by the apps, by the potato chips in the store, by the candy, by the sodas. And so we're just getting obese and diabetic and lonely and isolated and not having much sex. So in a sense, our commercialized society has just used science to get us addicted to their product. And if the product is easy access and doesn't require much of us, we're going to pick that over the more difficult thing of forming real relationships and spending time with people and going through the dance and the process of having sex with somebody, or going out and growing your own carbohydrates, and eating those once a year. And again, that's not going to change. There's nothing about our culture that any of that's going to change. But I do think there is a trend happening, because I read more and more stuff like people getting dumb phones instead of smartphones, bricking their phone so the apps don't work, or taking the apps off their phone. And so I think people are starting to realize, hey, I'm addicted to this quick, easy hit, and it's not fulfilling to me. And so, and a lot of the work that I do, especially with men, like I said, I had a workshop here in my office this weekend. I'm flying to Austin. I'm supposed to anyway on Wednesday to go be part of a workshop there. And all these workshops are really about teaching men how to level up, how to mature, how to challenge themselves, how to get out of their comfort zone and go create the kind of life and relationship and dynamics that are fulfilling and lasting and leave a legacy behind. And so I think the good news is, I'm an optimist, that I think maybe we may be swung where, a lot of men spend all their time in the nursery, and then maybe they'll swing back, red pill or, Andrew Tate or something. But I think more and more actually going, I want something of meaning. I want something meaningful, and I want something challenging. And that excites me, and that makes me optimistic.
Do you think that maybe one of the largest contributors of the crisis, like you said, that young men aren't dating, let alone having sex, is could that be because they have these beliefs about relationships or dating that are built on false foundations? Like, if I approach that lady and she doesn't like me, maybe she's going to put me on blast. Or if I
You have to blast is a new one. I heard of T the other day, and I also heard of Facebook pages. Are we dating the same guy? And of course, there's always Instagram that if a woman wants to, flame a guy. So I'll find out from you later. I'll look it up. What blast is? I can guess.
Meaning just like, is this lady going to out me as if I did something like this? Is she gonna, like, these kinds of things? Or if I do get into an amazing relationship with her, am I even a lovable person? Do I have lovable attributes? Am I, a masculine provider? Things like this. Do you think that I guess you could call them limiting beliefs that some young men hold, do you think that that's a large contributor as to why this problem is occurring?
Well, again, I think we're dealing with multiple factors. All the ones you mentioned, yeah, I'm sure. I think there's some more factors coming in there. There may be cultural as well. I think a lot of young people, they're much more aware of stuff than they were my generation. So, like, social media and the internet probably provided a lot of that. Your generation is better. You're the best informed generation that's ever lived on the planet. And so I think that they're a lot more sensitive to a lot of things, and actually your generation's actually a lot more into like therapy than previous generations have been. So I think a lot of people grew up seeing their parents have less than satisfying relationships, and they go, I don't want to repeat what my parents had. I think a lot of people look at the world we live in and feel fear and anxiety about what's in the future. We're really very rapidly changing times. AI is going to even speed that up even more than it has. And so I think a lot of people are going, I don't know if I want to get in a relationship. I don't know if I want to have a family or have kids. That's scary. And I think a lot of people just put off that. They just put it off, whether it's talking to a woman, starting a relationship, and it's easier again to just live online, whether it's starting your own company or just wasting time watching YouTube videos or doom scrolling Instagram. It's easy to keep putting that stuff off because I think a lot of people have a lot of fear and anxiety. They're just going to repeat what their parents did. And I think that's a legitimate fear, actually, because I'm a marriage and family therapist by training. That's what my doctorate said. So I've worked with a lot of couples. I've been married 3 times. And the truth is, for about 10,000 years, especially for the last few thousand years with the help of religion, we've been told that these lifelong pair-bonded monogamous relationships with the opposite sex are normal and easy. You should be able to easily meet the person you love. They're going to love you back and you live happily ever after. But that's a lie. Lifelong pair-bonded monogamous relationships with the opposite sex have never existed or worked in human DNA. Our ancestors for 1.5 million years were tribal, were cooperative. We shared everything, including sexual access. There was no reason to pair bond. Everybody got taken care of in the tribe, right? So the idea of a pair bonded relationship is a new paradigm, and it's never worked. And so what happens is we see it not work for our parents, and so your generation grows up and goes, I don't want to do that. I don't want to repeat that. So it's funny, you guys kind of go some other directions. So your generation really, like I said, into polyamory. And I think every young woman I've met, references that she's bisexual. So, there's those options now, which is maybe another reason men aren't getting laid. Women are choosing to have sex with other women instead of with the young men. And so, again, there's a number of those factors. And I think fear's tied into it. I know for a lot of men, we do have self-limiting beliefs. Am I good enough? Is a woman going to be attracted to me? I've never really dove into it, but I guess the black pill movement says that, unless a man has status, looks, and money, women aren't interested in him. But that's not actually true. I mean, I see a lot of average men. I'm a very average guy, and women flirt and come on to me all the time, women much younger than me. My wife points them out to me. So you don't have to have status, looks, for money, but there's a whole black pill movement that says, well, only the guys with 6-pack abs and 6-figure incomes and 6 foot tall, are going to get women. So why try? And then there's the incels. There's the MGTOW, men going their own way. I've had enough of women. Blah. So you've got all that stuff. And I think you're right. If you throw in social media, then nothing you do is private. Anything. And I was doing an interview maybe a year or two ago with a like 18, 20-year-old podcaster. And he was telling me a story about a friend of his, I think maybe 18, who was in a situation with a girlfriend, a woman he was dating. And they were, I'm pretty sure from what I remember, they were being sexual, but there was some situation that came up and his girlfriend got mad at him and was going to out him that he raped her. And her best friend, who happened to have know the story, talked her out of it. But this woman was going to accuse this guy of rape just because she got a bug up her ass and decided, something he did, she didn't like. And women can do that. And they put that on social media. How are you going to combat that? And they always say, well, the victim should always be believed. But what if the victim is a guy being falsely accused of something he didn't do? And that came out in #MeToo, that not everybody that got accused of shit had actually done the stuff they got accused of. And my wife accuses me of stuff all the time that I haven't done. So, luckily she doesn't put it on social media. But for example, I have a coach, a men's coach I've worked with for about 8 years. And he got into a relationship 3 or 4 years ago with another coach, a women's coach. And, and I think he thought this was the woman of his dreams, that they were going to marry and have kids. And, whatever happened that went south. And, everybody knew they were together because they're pretty prominent coaches out there. And she just started blasting him on Instagram and just, outing all kinds of things about him. Then the best part was, as they went through all that, he actually got together with her one more time. Let's give that one more try. And so, so I honestly, as a guy, if I thought anything that I did that any woman could possibly take wrong, and then she could flame me on social media and I have no recourse and no defense, I'd be pretty cautious too. And then, like you say, you throw in whatever those self-limiting beliefs are, which I had most of my life. I'm not attractive. Women aren't interested in me. Attractive women aren't interested in me. Women don't like sex. Women who think men who want sex with them are bad. I believed all that stuff for a long time. So I had to clear out a lot of that. I had self-limiting beliefs that if you were sexual with a woman, she would only be sexual if you were in an exclusive monogamous relationship with her. You can't be dating around. And so I believed a lot of those things. I had to go out and challenge those. But I consciously decided to go challenge those beliefs and realized they were all bogus. But it does take some work to go challenge them, because often what happens, if we have strong self-limiting beliefs that women aren't interested in me, or I'm not good enough, or I'm boring, or, I don't have the sex, looks, and money that women want, and all of it takes is one or two rejections maybe, or a breakup, and we go, see, I was right. Why try? And the truth is, if we get hurt, we don't want to go there again. I put my hand on an electric stovetop when I was about 5 years old. It was above my head, and I didn't know the stove was on. I got really careful around stovetops, right? You get burned, you get really careful. You get really cautious. You don't want to go there again. And especially if you got burned and hurt by a woman who maybe you cared about, and maybe she did hurtful things to you, maybe she cheated on you, maybe she flamed you on social media, and maybe you don't know what you did wrong. You don't even know what you did. And so, of course, you're going to be cautious. And again, I don't blame anybody. Now, with all that said, from a more like philosophical view of life, I believe we're here to get our hearts broken. I believe in the wisdom of the broken heart. And what I mean by that is that anything in this life that is good enough, meaningful enough, pleasurable enough to break a heart is something we wouldn't want to have missed. And there's one of my favorite books on relationships is written by Dr. David Snarch. It's called Passionate Marriage. And there's a line in that book that says, in every relationship, somebody's going to get left. Now, that's just Buddhism 101. That's impermanence. Nothing lasts forever. So with my wife and I, we've been married 9.5 years. One of us is probably going to die before the other. Now, I'm 22 years older than her, so statistically it could be me, but it may not. She may go before I do. My dog Nala, my 5-year-old pit bull, that dog's the love of my life. Everybody loves that dog. My workshop this weekend, she was in the office the whole time. Everybody loves that dog. If she goes before I do, I'm going to be heartbroken. I just love that dog so much. My wife just mentions all the time she's going to be devastated when that dog dies. And, hopefully she can be around a little while longer. But in every relationship, somebody's going to get left. Now, when I first read that, I thought, that's like the best news I've ever heard. I think a lot of people think, oh, that's bad news. I don't want to hear that. I mean, my mother's 90. Probably she's going to, leave before I do. But her husband and 2 of her kids died before she did. So she's already been left, and she watched me almost die 8 years ago. So in every relationship, doesn't matter if it's parent-child, husband-wife, best friend, owner and dog, everybody's going to get left by the things they love. But here's the thing. Does that mean we should guard ourselves against ever loving anything, ever getting deeply attached, ever risking because we might get hurt? We are going to get hurt, right? Not that we might get hurt. We are going to get hurt. It's guaranteed. If you truly love something or somebody, and if and when it goes away, it will hurt. And I believe that's why we're here, is to both experience that depth of connection and to experience that loss and then get up and do it again. Because the more we do it, the better we get at opening and letting these good things in. And so, like, what I do with the people I care about, like, you and I were talking before this call. I live in a very tranquil, tourist town here, in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, and had a group of guys here this weekend. And during lunch Saturday, I said, oh, nothing ever happens here. The narcos run the country, but they don't fuck with their piggy bank. Well, that night, the federal government took out the head narco in this area, and the narcos fucked with their piggy bank yesterday. There was a bus burning right in front of my house at 8:30 yesterday morning. Buses burning all over this town. This stuff happening everywhere. And so things happen. And the point I was going to make is that yesterday and today, I probably have gotten at least 50 messages from people asking me if I'm okay. People that love me and care about me. That feels good to me. I write everybody back. I'm okay. I'm doing all right. I send the pictures of buses burning in front of my house. But they love me and they care about me. And the people I love and care about, I reach out to them regularly and find out how they're doing, let them know I love them. My dog, I tussle with her every time she brings a toy and wants to tussle. I take her for a walk every day. I get down on the floor every day and look her in the eyes and tell her how much I love her. I try to live as much in the moment as I can every day. My wife knows how much I love her. I've hugged her and held her several times just in the last 24 hours, and she's just cried because she's so scared for everything going on. She's from Guadalajara. Guadalajara, they burned more of it than they did here. She has family there. Her daughter, who's 18, was at her friend's house all weekend, so she was scared about her daughter. And so, we just, in the moment, I'm here. I'll hold you. And so I'm a big fan of let's take those risks. Let's get out of our comfort zone. Let's risk our social blunders. Let's risk getting flamed on social media. Let's risk getting with a narcissist or a borderline and they make our life miserable. Let's risk getting cheated on. Let's risk not being able to get an erection when we want to have sex. Let's risk all those things that if we don't risk, we miss out on the goodies. We miss out on the good stuff. Because I promise you, looking at porn doesn't even compare to just balls to the wall sex with a crazy woman that wants to fuck your brains out. I mean, crazy in all the best ways, right? Having an OnlyFans doesn't compare with having a woman who thinks you're amazing and wants to bless your life. Just being on social media doesn't compare to just having true friends that as soon as they see that your city is burning, they're reaching out to check on you. There's nothing like that true depth of connection. And are we going to get hurt? Yeah, we are. People are going to disappoint us, let us down. They're going to be clumsy lovers. So are we. We're going to hurt other people. Let's do it anyway. So there's my sermon on the wisdom of the broken heart.
We keep if we take into account that the life we live is a sand mandala that all gets washed away, you can't take any of this with you. You're going to get hurt. It might as well be on your terms, right? You may as well leave the best mark you can on the people that surround you, the people you love, your environment, things like this. There's really no downside to trying your hardest, which I think is an incredibly profound idea. It really is.
And I'll say it again. And you're going to get hurt. And you're going to make mistakes. And you're going to feel stupid. And you're going to get rejected. And you're going to get left. And say yes anyway.
I love that. So if we keep that in our minds, why do you think young men, if they do end up mustering up the courage to go talk to that lady, or even a young woman who musters up the courage to go talk to that guy, why do they feel that rejection is a stamp on their character rather than some actionable feedback that they can go, oh, well, I said this and this didn't work, so maybe I change it next time and I go back to the drawing board with this thing and I open up with this line instead? Why is it a stamp on their character that says you are completely unlovable, don't talk to anybody ever?
And everybody can see right through you, and any woman that rejects you, any man that rejects you means everyone's going to reject you. I think it is human nature to fear rejection. Again, it kind of goes back to the broken heart. It's like, oh, I'm not getting the access that I want. I don't get the dopamine hit of somebody liking me and wanting to be with me and get naked with me. I don't get that. So there must be something wrong with me. Now, to me, there's at least a couple factors here. One that I think you're alluding to would be what's called toxic shame. It's a core belief inside that I'm not good enough. I'm unlovable. I'm bad. I'm defective. I'm bad for having needs. And if I let anybody close enough to me, they're going to see that. They're going to find out how bad I am. Now, this toxic shame, my belief, my theory, is that it is an inaccurately internalized emotional belief from early in childhood, where we were hungry and we didn't get fed right away. We were cold and we didn't get bundled up. Maybe mom and dad were fighting. Maybe we got neglected. Maybe we got spanked or slapped or abused. And the child always internalizes that's about me. They don't think that as an emotional internalization, but it's inaccurate. I must be bad because I didn't get fed. I must be bad. I must have caused that because children are narcissistic by nature. Now, they're not thinking I'm bad. What's happening is they're storing up in a very primitive part of their brain down here on the brainstem. We all did this. That manages survival. It's the amygdala. It manages our fight, flight, freeze response, our sympathetic, parasympathetic nervous system. It manages respiration and heart rate, and it stores emotional belief from early in childhood. Those early beliefs become our machine language, our operating system that all of our experiences get built on. So if we internalize toxic shame at a young age, I'm bad, I'm unlovable, we don't think it, we feel it. Then everything happens. We stumble and fall and people laugh. Oh, I am unlovable. Somebody bullies us. Oh, I am unlovable. Somebody makes fun of us. We raise our hand and we get the wrong answer in class. They laugh. I am unlovable. We talk to somebody in junior high and they giggle and walk away. All of those things. And we try for the team and we don't make it. We get the bad grade and dad's mad at us, whatever. All those things get piled on top of that emotional belief that says, I'm bad, I'm unlovable, I'm not good enough. And then all those experiences become our identity. See, those are proof I'm not good enough. So again, as a primary reason we don't approach people that we're attracted to, because we're believing, well, if I'm attracted to them, we've already put them above us. Now we got to get them to approve of us and decide we're good enough to be with them. And so we don't want to take that risk, or if we do take that risk, we do it really clumsily because we feel anxious, or awkwardly, or less than skillfully, right? And then it doesn't go well, and we think, see, I was right. Everybody can see I'm not good enough. Women don't want to be with me. They never give me a number. So that toxic shame. Now, we're not walking around, most of us, some of us do. Some people walk around very aware of their toxic shame. I'm terrible. I'm unlovable. I'm ugly. I'm fat. My dick's too short. Nobody likes me. But a lot of us are just trying our best to keep that toxic shame at bay. I'm going to try harder. I'm going to see if I can make enough money. I'm going to make good grades. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get six-pack abs. I'm going to do Brazilian jiu-jitsu. I'll do all those things to feel lovable. But if that core toxic shame is still there, it's still going to easily get triggered. And so when I became single in my late 40s and started dating, I had not dated well earlier in life. Like I said, I'd been married twice, but I used what I call nice guy seduction. I would pick a woman that wasn't too attractive or too unattractive. I would try to impress her, raise my hand in class, know the answers, try to do things for her, solve problems, fix things for her, listen to her talk about her problems, then, and hide my sexual agenda from her, and then maybe she'll want to get naked with me. That equation doesn't work well. But I kept trying that anyway. And I got a couple women who I married and stayed with them for 25 years. And I should not have dated either one of them more than 3 dates. I mean, they weren't bad people, but they weren't good matches for me. But I stayed with them 25 years because I didn't know how to date. So in my 40s and in my 50s, I learned how to date and I got good at it. And I met a lot of great women and dated a lot and had relationships and got laid a lot. And I was a therapist, so a lot of my men who were like in my No More Mr. Nice Guy men's groups were like, Robert, teach us, what are you doing? And I go, I'm not a dating coach. I'm not a dating guru. I'm a marriage therapist. They go, but you're having success. Teach us what you're doing. And because I'm a teacher by nature, I started paying attention. What am I doing? How do I interact with people? How do I interact with, which is men and women? How do I escalate? How do I do this? How do I walk through open doors? And again, I was attracting people. I wasn't trying to get anybody to like me. I wasn't trying to get anybody to give me a number. And I wasn't trying to get anybody to have sex. And women were just taking their clothes off on first dates without me doing anything or propositioning me. And I'm like, what planet have I landed on? So when I started teaching guys to do what I was doing, one of the biggest block I ran into was this rejection thing. And so I tried to convince the guys, rejection doesn't hurt. Oh, yeah, it does. It hurts a lot. So I started saying, okay, we can't use the R word anymore. Can't use the word rejection. So we got to get the R word out of our vocabulary. Then we just come up with other words. I got shot down. They come up with some other way of describing it. And I go, no, the woman just had low interest in giving you a phone number, low interest in going on a date. And you don't know why. If she said she has a boyfriend, take her at her word. Maybe she has a boyfriend. If she's busy right now, take her at her word. But most men would take that personally and not want to go try again. So trying to get men to get over that by talking them out of it didn't work. So what I actually started doing is I started giving guys the assignment. And it takes a special courage to do this assignment. And guys would do it. A lot wouldn't, but enough would that they had great success. I'd say go out with a buddy, go out some night and try to get 5 rejections in the night. Before you go home, you got to get rejected 5 times. And I said, keep it simple. Don't be offensive to anybody. But you see a woman, in a club, in a bar, in the dance floor, wherever you go, just walk up, say your name, say, I want to take you out. Give me your phone number. Just cut to the chase. Give me your phone number. I want to take you out. Something that has a high likelihood of being told no, getting rejected. And, guys, it takes a little bit of courage, but finally you'll walk up to a woman and, say, my name's such and such, give me your phone number, I want to take you out. And maybe she actually gives them a phone number. I've gone out trying to get 5 rejections, and I couldn't get 5 in a night. I was getting numbers from totally inappropriate women. I was talking to, college freshmen. Give me your number, I want to take you out. Okay, and they're spelling their name for me, as I put it in my phone. And because there's something about trying to get rejected versus trying not to get rejected, you come across as confident and not anxious and kind of bold. And the woman's going, yeah, that's kind of cool. You walked over here and said you want to take me out. Sure, here's my number. And maybe the guys would come back and say, well, I didn't get a number, but we had a great conversation. It was really fun. She was really impressed that I went. And so by trying to get rejected, the first time they do it, they come back and go, I can't believe I did it. And, that felt kind of cool. I'm going to go, and they'll go do another one. And they'll come back, yes, 2 rejections, I'm on a roll. Yeah, but if they've been trying not to get rejected, the second rejection would have sent them home crying, right? So if we change the context of it, and I do an exercise sometimes. I did it here this weekend with the guys at my workshop. We went out in my backyard, and we paired up, to 2 guys talking to each other. You got partner A and partner B. And each of them gets 2 minutes. Partner A has to keep repeating, I want to be happy. I want world peace. I want a bigger dick. I want a sexy girlfriend. I want to make more money, whatever. And partner B has to keep telling them no, can't have it. Not going to happen. No, never. Not getting it. 2 minutes of saying, I want whatever that is, and 2 minutes of constant being told no. Then we switch. The other partner B, 2 minutes was, and they're laughing, they're having a good time, they're being silly. I'm calling 2 minutes time. They keep going. Guys, 2 minutes, they're still, and so we come back and talk about, what that felt like to ask for what you want, to say no, to be told no. And then I say, you guys all just got over and over again rejected for 2 minutes. You got told no over and over and over again for 2 minutes. And I say, and you were having fun. You were laughing. You were playing. I couldn't get you to quit. I said, what is the difference between that and a woman saying no, she don't want to give you your phone number? Well, that's different. Well, the only thing that's different is context and mindset. The meaning we put on it makes it. They weren't putting meaning on the constant no's. So what if we didn't put meaning on a woman saying, no, thank you for asking, but I got a boyfriend. No, I don't give my number out. What if we didn't put meaning on that? It was just low interest in giving us a phone number, and some other woman's going to have high interest in giving us a phone number. Now, I think it does take some practice to go out and try to do that get rejected thing, to actually get over it and realize that didn't hurt. And actually it felt good to challenge myself, get out of my comfort zone, and have, and anything's a success if you get out of your comfort zone. A fun conversation is a success. A number is a success. Being told no is a success. They're all a success because you challenged yourself and got out of your comfort zone.
I love that. I think it's genius to not only reframe a rejection or a failure as actually a win. I'm looking for these rejections, but also it's exposure therapy. the more and more you do this
Exactly.
thing, the less and less it hurts, right? I did something super similar. I started kickboxing last year, and initially I was terrified of getting punched or kicked in the face because the thought was if I get punched, maybe I get knocked out or maybe I die, maybe my brain shoots back, maybe
It's gonna hurt.
no,
God damn it! It's gonna
exactly.
hurt.
It's all of these things, all of these things. And then you get punched in the face once and you're like, "Oh, we're actually wearing, 12-ounce boxing gloves. It's not that bad. Obviously, it's not ideal, but it's not that bad. Like it's not terrible." And you do it over and over and over enough to where you're like
Until you get brain damage and you don't know.
basically, yeah, until you just don't care anymore, really. And then that's when you start to see skill increase because you're not worried about, oh, what's the other guy doing? I need to avoid his punch by, 3-4 feet, so I just need to jump away rather than moving a few inches or moving your chin back like Anderson Silva. Just it helps a lot to not be afraid of the negative outcome. You don't even have that in your brain. You're just like this is it's going to go the way it goes and I'm going to try my hardest. And that's a great mindset to have when you're doing anything.
If it hurts, I'll handle it. If I look foolish, I'll handle it. And there's kind of the godfather of cognitive behavioral therapy is a guy named David Burns, and he wrote a book called The New Mood Therapy about dealing with depression. And he was a big advocate. He said he wouldn't give any patient an assignment he wouldn't do himself. So he's like New York psychiatrist. So he'd have somebody come with social anxiety or fear of looking foolish or fear of and he'd go, okay, we're gonna go out on the sidewalk, a New York City sidewalk. We're both gonna lie on our back and kick like we're dead cockroaches on the sidewalk. And he'd go out and do it with people. And he said, now we're going to go get on a bus, a New York City bus, and we're going to sing the national anthem. And we're going to do it together. And we're going to try to get everybody else to sing along with us, right? And as you said, it's just kind of, if you just put yourself in the situation and go through the thing that you fear the most, you often get to the other side of that and go, that didn't hurt like I thought it was going to. And actually, it didn't hurt at all. And actually, I feel free now, and I feel good about myself now. So yeah, there's just something to be said about facing the things we fear. I talk about using fear as your North Star. People will ask me times, Robert, I don't know how I make a decision here. Which way should I go? I said, go the way that scares you the most. Make that your North Star. Go that direction. So getting punched in the face scares you. Let's go. If talking to that pretty woman scares you, let's go. I'm smiling because I remember as I approached my 40th birthday, kind of that midlife thing. Well, how do I want the second half of my life to look different from the first half of my life? And it's kind of smiling because I just turned 70 a couple months ago, and I'm thinking, how young and naive was I 30 years ago at 40? Now I'm going at 70. What do I want the final part of my life to look like? But so I was struggling with that as I approached 40, and it hit me. My second wife and I had gone to Reno for my birthday, and it's kind of the holidays, and the kids were at their other parents' house. We had blended family, and so we're at Reno, and I'm a pretty cautious gambler. Back then, if I gambled $100 in a day, that was pretty big. And I gambled my $100, and I played blackjack. That's all I played. So when I was done, I was done. And so we're there, and it finally hit me. I didn't want to die afraid. I didn't want to spend the last second 40 years of my life being afraid in the same ways I was in the first 40 years. And it wasn't that I didn't want to be afraid of dying. I've actually faced that fear by almost dying a few years ago. But I just didn't want to live my life afraid. I didn't want I can't do that. That scares me. And so I decided, okay, that's how I'm going to live the second half of my life. If I have a fear, I'm going to face it. And it hit me. I thought, all right, what scares me right now? I thought I had a $100 bill that was going to be that day's blackjack money. I thought, okay, went down to a blackjack table, bought $100 worth of chips, put all the chips on the table for one hand of blackjack. That scared me, to lose all that money on one hand. So I'm going to do it. It scares me. If I lose it, no more blackjack today. I'm done playing. So I went and did it. And I was nervous. I was anxious. The dealer's dealing the cards, comes around. I pushed. And so he didn't take my money, and so I left it, played another hand. I lost $100, but I felt good. I thought, okay, that $100 was worth it. And back then, that was 25 years ago. So $100 was a big deal to me back then. Still is, but it was a bigger deal back then. But I thought, okay, if it scares me, I'm going to do it. And that's been a good mantra for my life. When I decided that for 30 years ago, and I'm still living by that mantra. If it scares me, do it. Now, I haven't jumped out of any airplanes, and I don't know that I will, but there are certain things that, that if it feels like physically life-threatening, I won't do it. Like yesterday when there were burning buses and cars around, probably not a good idea for, some white guy to go walking around town. So I stayed in, right? I stayed in. So, but I try not to let fears control my life, because kind of going back to the very thing we started talking about. If we don't have a relationship, if we're not having sex, if we're not having goodies in life, it's probably because fear's driving the bus of our life.
There's a book by Ryan Holiday titled "The Obstacle Is the Way." And it's one of those books that you don't even have to read in order to understand what it's about and what the value is. Just by reading the title, you're like, "Holy
You got it.
shit!" That's absolutely right. The obstacle is exactly the way, especially if you're, if you're letting your life be guided or directed by fear. That's no way to live, right? That's why we're inside and we don't have any social relationships, and we're watching porn and we don't have a romantic relationship, and all of these things, because we're afraid of rejection, social ostracization, or even finances. Like you said, you were afraid to gamble $100 all in one hand because that's a whole lot of money. But when you did it, you were like, oh well, actually it's not that bad. It's not the end of the world. Exactly. And that's a special feeling to have when you realize that your fears are basically irrational, and you create them out of nothing.
A lot of more, yeah, I like that title, and I think he talks about stoicism in that book, if I remember right. And, it reminded me of a quote. I think this was from Joseph Campbell, who said, "The cave we fear to enter holds the treasure we seek." Meaning those places that kind of scares, that's where the good stuff lies. Kind of going back to, in every relationship we're going to get left, the wisdom of the broken heart. The good stuff is on the other side of risk. We probably maybe have seen that little meme on the internet before, the circle that says your comfort zone, and then outside that circle is a little X that says the good stuff, right? It's outside our comfort zone. So yeah, the treasure we seek lies in the cave we fear to enter. So, let's go crawling around in that cave and see what's in there. And
Absolutely, man.
yeah, we might get stuck and never come out again, but there might be treasure in there, right?
When a young man is looking for love, should he focus more on being attractive, like the sort of black pill thing that you talked about? I should focus on, getting six-pack abs, and learning how to articulate correctly, and learning all of these things that will get me a woman. Or should he learn, should he focus on being a more valuable person in general, rather than all of the cosmetic things? He focuses on the internal, making more money, things like this.
Yeah. How about yes to all of the above? My wife loves talking about me. Like, she's 22 years younger than me, and she's been a gym rat since she was 15. She's pushing 49, and she has an awesome body. People will ask her, well, how old are you? So I'm 48. And go, no. And then, like, at the gym, she just told me the other day that the woman at the front desk asked how old I was. And she said, oh, he's 70. She goes, your husband's 70? She says, he looks good. He's in good shape. And she goes, oh, no, he's mine. He's mine. and then she'll tell them. She goes, yeah, my husband, she speaks all Spanish. She doesn't speak English, but I'm translating. She says, my husband's vainer than I am. He has more of an ego than I do. And you know what? I'd say that, Ryan Holiday's got another book called The Ego is the Enemy, which I don't agree with. I like my ego, because if my ego wants to look good naked, if my ego wants to look good in my clothes, I came down with this shirt on, and my wife was on the phone talking to her cousin, and I came down just to get on the call, and she looks up, her eyes go out like that. And she muttered something, that while she was talking to her cousin. And so, yeah, if my ego gets me to the gym, if my ego gets me counting macros, if my ego wants to wear a nice pressed shirt, if my ego says groom yourself, and that makes my world better and makes me more attractive and makes me feel better in my own skin, what's wrong with that? So I know kind of the red pill meme out there is that, the high value man getting the high value woman. And, the high value man is the guy that has a 6-pack abs, 6-figure income, 6 foot tall, that kind of thing. And, the alpha they like to talk about. But, not every guy's an alpha. You're not an alpha. I'm not an alpha. But you know what? I have no problem getting laid, and I haven't for a long time, and I'm not an alpha. And I don't have the status, looks, and money. But I do take good care of myself. I've worked on being a social animal and being able to engage with people well. I do go to the gym. I do count macros. I do I live in Lululemon most of the time, but I'll put on a Hugo Boss every now and then. And so I take care of myself. I have an air of confidence about me when I walk in a room. I've worked on that. And with all that, I'm me. I'm just myself. Now, again, I tell the guys that, be yourself and bring value to the table that other people are going to find interesting. If you're boring, if you've never read a book, if you just play World of Warcraft, all night long, and you don't know what's going on in the world, and you can't discuss anything intelligently, and you mumble your words, why would anybody be interested in having a conversation with you? How would that make you attractive? So work on you. Level up. You don't have to be better, but you can do better. You're fine. You're good. Be you. And you can do better. You can read more. You can work on your social skills. You can go to a voice coach. You can do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu to challenge yourself. You can get to the gym. You can get a trainer. In fact, I've often joked the times in my life when I got laid the most is when I had a trainer, a coach, and a men's group. I'm a big believer in doing those things that hone me, right? And so with that, I don't have to go out trying to get women. I don't have to go out trying to get laid. I just tend to attract them, and I'm comfortable responding to their attention to me, and I'll walk through the open doors. So I know a lot of guys say, well, just being me doesn't seem to be working. Women don't. And I go, really? How many people know the real you? Who sees the real you? Who knows how much porn you watch? Who knows how much time you waste on Instagram? Who knows about your secret OnlyFans accounts? Who knows, how bad your money situation is? Who knows how many lies you tell? Now, see, I have no secrets. I used to have a lot of them, but I have people in my life. I have a men's group. I have people in my life that know me well, and I have no secrets from my wife. I have nothing hidden. Everything about me is out in the open, and that's been a work in progress for me. And because I have nothing hidden, I can be me. I can be silly, I can be irreverent, I can be corny, I can be stupid, I can tell dumb dad jokes. I can be me, and people still find that interesting and attractive. And so, yeah, I'm a big believer. Level up. I've got 2 bracelets right here. One of them says "Do Better." That's from my Integration Nation Men's program. The other one says "Level Up." That was the theme of my men's program's retreat about 3 weeks ago. I'm good. I don't have to be better, but I can keep leveling up. I decided maybe foolishly about a month ago, I got challenged to create a Masogi challenge for 2026. I'm in a men's group with a bunch of kind of digital nomad entrepreneurs. They're all younger than me. They all travel the world, and I learn a lot from them. But we got challenged to make a Masogi challenge. And I said, well, I'm working on finishing another book, so maybe I'll get this other book published this year. I thought, no, I've published 4 books. I know I'm going to get the book done. That's not a big challenge. And then I mentioned that, well, I might could do a bodybuilding competition now that I've turned 70. That'd be kind of, and like the leader of this men's program, he just had come into the breakout room and he goes, Robert, when you said that, you lit up, everybody else lit up. I said, fuck you. I said, I don't want to do it. And then I told my nutrition coach, who is a former bodybuilder champion, she's got pictures of her in bikinis all over the internet. And I told her that, and she started doing a happy dance all over the phone conversation. So I've committed to a bodybuilding championships. I think it's going to be Labor Day in Muscle Beach in Venice, California, and they do a competition every year. And they have one called Male Physique. It's not the big buff giant legs. You don't wear a banana hammock bikini. You wear board shorts, and you just have to look strong and toned and have poise and confidence and hold a pose. And so my coach is going to coach me up on how to do all that. And, it scares me. It's out of my comfort zone. I don't really know what I'm scared of. I'll have to get serious and really count macros and really get to the gym regularly. But you know what? Why not? Why not? So why not go out and challenge myself? I know I'll feel good about myself. I'll look good. And I'll make an even bigger impact on the world because I know I'm a role model to a lot of men, and they'll go, Robert, that's impressive. I want to do something impressive as well. So, yeah, let's work on ourselves. Let's be a high value guy. Now, that doesn't mean just because it's the red pill, you got six-pack abs and make six figures. And, the high value women for them is young and attractive unless you fuck around. And they don't have a high body count. That's high value woman, according to Red Pill. I don't buy all that. But let's be ourselves and be our best selves. So the ego's not the enemy. If the ego gets you to the gym, good. Get to the gym.
If you're not going to be liked anyway, you may as well be. You may as well.
That's a great premise to start with, right? If nobody's gonna like you, if nobody's gonna talk to you or give you the time of day or show you their tits, what we're gonna fill in the blank? You might as well.
You may as well just be yourself. If there's going to be a section of people that you talk to that aren't going to like you, or maybe it's everybody because you just suck, but I doubt it. If there's going to be a group of people that don't like you, you may as well be yourself and have them not like you for who you are rather than for who you're not. You know what I mean? There's no reason to put on a persona.
Learn to make fun of yourself. Now, don't berate yourself, but learn to laugh at yourself. Laugh at your foibles. Laugh at those things about yourself that that the things that actually you don't want anybody to know about you. Tell on yourself. Laugh about it. Yeah. If somebody says something to you, exaggerate it. Yeah, I'm the most controlling asshole you ever met. But learn to have fun with this stuff. Let's not take ourselves so seriously. Let's have a good time.
Absolutely. I think one of my biggest return on investment habits, I guess you could say, one of the habits that I've installed in my life that's given me a disproportionately large return is having fun and not taking myself too seriously. It's so useful, man. It's so useful, especially if you're a quote unquote high achiever or you have a, a serious job. Ha ha ha, I'm a serious businessman or whatever. It's incredibly useful to joke around a lot. It just lightens the mood of everything and makes everybody more comfortable.
And again, just be you, be irreverent. Chris Williamson of Modern Wisdom has interviewed me a couple times, and I shared something with him a couple years ago that he's pretty much made viral because people ask me about it a lot because a lot of people watch Chris Williamson. But I told him that the feminine is highly attracted to a man who's comfortable in his own skin, knows where he's going, and looks like he's having a good time getting there. And I know he shared that with Alex Hormozy. They had a big discussion about it. He shared it with Mark Manson. He shared that with Alison Armstrong just a month or two ago. I was watching that interview. And when I tell that to like female dating coaches, they all go, yes. And it is so simple that when I say the feminine, I mean everything energetically feminine: women, dogs, cats, babies, money, opportunity, adventures, attracted, comfortable in your own skin. A guy that's released his shame, a guy that takes care of his body, a guy that, likes how he is, how he looks, that walks the planet on his terms, a guy that isn't riddled with social anxiety or carrying a depression. Now, I'm not minimizing emotional problems, but I'm saying let's deal with them. Let's address them. So you're comfortable in your own skin. You know where you're going. That means you've got purpose. You got passion. You get out of bed in the morning excited. Even if you're not, involved in some big purposeful change the world thing, Even if you get out of the bed in the morning excited because you don't know how your day's going to end, and you know you're going to say yes to opportunity and adventure, that's purposeful, and that's attractive to the feminine. And then having a good time getting there. Like you say, if we're not so serious and all caught up in that I'm a high value man because I do a 5-minute cold plunge every morning and women should be instantly attracted to me for that and they shouldn't have a high body count. I mean, fuck it. Don't be so goddamn serious. There's no gold stars in heaven for doing the 5-minute cold plunge every morning. And fuck their body count. It doesn't matter. If they have a high body count, it probably means they like sex. I'm okay with that. Let's not take this shit so seriously. Let's enjoy our lives and get our hearts broken.
The masculine feminine paradigm or paradox, whatever you would like to call it, a lot of people, especially in my generation, completely misunderstand it. I feel it's not
probably we all do.
Yeah, it's to me at least, it's not that men are masculine and women are feminine and that is the way that it is and that's the way that it always has been and all of these things. There's a not to sound too woo-woo here, but there's a sort of energetic frequency or pattern. Masculinity is a structure, it's a framework, it's things like this, and feminine energy is more flowy and things like this. What do you think my generation at least completely misunderstands about the feminine masculine polarity and how that plays into relationships?
I don't know that I can answer that question about what your generation misunderstands, but I can say a little bit about the masculine feminine because I wasn't really introduced to these concepts until 20 years ago when I read David Data's Way of the Superior Man and did a couple workshops with him, and I attended a program with him just this last March, coming up on a year ago. And so that had a big impact on my life, both in terms of how I live, but what I teach as well as a therapist, coach, teacher. And yeah, the think of it in terms of the yin and yang. That signal or the symbol we think of black and white. Like half moons with the little eye in it. And it's an energetic dynamic, the yin and the yang. The yang's the masculine, the yin is the feminine. And basically the way I break it down is that, the masculine penetrates. The masculine is the constant. The feminine, as you say, flows. Feminine is the weather. The feminine is everything not nailed down. Now, we all, and this is where people get confused, it's not just male equals masculine, female equals feminine. We all have masculine, feminine traits. I do. I have a lot of strong feminine traits. I like to be loved. I like to be validated. I like to look good. I like people to appreciate me. Those are all receptive feminine traits. And I like to get shit done. I'm kind of an overachieving type B personality. I'm not a type A, but I've accomplished quite a bit in my lifetime. And I like that. I like the internal validation and satisfaction of doing something and doing it well. Now, the masculine is internally validated through action. The feminine part of ourselves is externally validated through attention or praise and desire. And again, we've all got some of that. Most of us lean more one direction than the other. Now, what I actually, though, see happen with your generation is that, and part of this, I think, just has to do with what happened in the school systems over the last 40 years. When I was in graduate school in the early 80s, and in child development courses, the teachers I had were, I'm sure, avowed feminists, and they were teaching that gender does not exist. It's a social construct imposed on children at birth by culture. This is what boys do. This is what girls do. This is a boy's role. This is a girl's role. And they said those were just imposed constructs. They said children are blank slates, tabula rasas, that they don't have gender. And okay, all right. So I had, a few years later, I had a baby boy, and I got him a Cabbage Patch doll, and in a truck and a basketball, and but he had as many dolls as he did trucks. He never fucking played with the dolls, but he always wanted his truck, and his ball, and this guy, grew up, played several sports, lettered, excelled, went to Iraq, was in the Marines. Now he's 40 years old, and he's raised on his own. My granddaughter, who's 19, she's an amazing young woman. And so he's very masculine, right? And I gave him Cabbage Patch dolls. So there's actually no evidence to support that boys and girls are exactly the same. Boys and girls are different. But we can conflate gender as in, you and I both, have male genitalia and male chromosomes, and we identify as male. And, my wife is female and has female chromosomes and female genitalia. But my wife's also got a strong masculine side. She's done kickboxing. She's done Muay Thai. She's, like I said, been a gym rat since she's 15. She grew up, in poverty in Guadalajara, Mexico, 8 out of 10 kids. She's had to fight since she was a kid. I grew up in white bread Seattle, Washington, with a bunch of Boeing engineers families playing soccer. I haven't been in too many fights in my life. I haven't had to. I could use my mind and my smarts to get out of stuff. And so people, you ask anybody that knows my wife and I, they'll go, who's more masculine, who's feminine? And they'll go, oh, Lupita's more masculine, Robert's more feminine. So I love the feminine part about me. I love, I put on this Hugo Boss shirt. That feels good. And I love that my wife finds me attractive and likes to brag about me. And I like the part of me that gets shit done. And I like the part about my wife that she can get shit done. The car needs fixed, she takes it and gets it fixed. Today, when we needed some groceries, she ventured out into the war zone and got shit done. She said, no, you're not leaving the house. And I like how she's feminine, how she loves to dress up and wear something beautiful and sexy. And I always tell her how beautiful and sexy she is. So I did it for you. I love that feminine. So we all have some feminine and masculine. And what I'm a big fan of is let's be conscious and choose how we want to be in our masculine and feminine. Now, there is, as you talked about, maybe an energetic, vibrational polarity between masculine and feminine, like the plus and minus on a magnet. If you turn them to the same, they push each other away. But if they're opposites, they pull and attract. So in your generation, what I see is the men are much more feminine. In the nursery, having everything pushed, they're in receptive mode. And they want to be approved of and liked and valued. The women are much more masculine. They're out there kicking ass. They're playing soccer. They're competing. They're getting the good grades. They're getting the college degrees. They're out there kicking ass. And so what's interesting, while these feminist teachers were saying, boys are competitive, that's bad. Girls are cooperative, that's good. Now the boys are all real cooperative and passive, and the girls are all real competitive, right? They're as hierarchical as what the feminists used to say that men were, that created all the patriarchy and suffering in the world. Now the women are competitive and hierarchical. So I do agree that to some degree gender is fluid, right? I can play a feminine role. I was holding my 3-month-old grandson this morning and just having a good time, just snuggling with my little grandson and, just feeling, oh, isn't this cool? I'm holding this little baby. And I can get shit done. And again, my wife can get shit done, or she can be in that tell me I'm beautiful mode. So we get to choose. But again, in your generation, if the guys are kind of more aligned with their feminine, wanting approval and validation and likes on Instagram, what are you going to polarize and attract to you in terms of partners? Probably a kick-ass kind of woman. And so when guys your age tell me, oh, I've got a new girlfriend, or I met this woman, she's great. I go, already tell me about her. She's a CEO of her own company. She snowboards, she skis, she mountain bikes. She's got her own Sprinter van. She rock climbs. She's this. And I said, dude, man, you're dating a dude. And again, that's coming from, my 70-year-old stereotype. But the guys I know, when they describe their ideal woman, oh, she's got advanced degrees, she's a CEO of her company. They're all describing masculine traits, right? The doing traits. So to answer your question, I think that's what I see. And now when I see like couples, your age going out, it's the woman kind of walking in front of the guy, kind of, navigating where we're going. They walk into a hotel desk. It's the woman that goes up and puts her ID on the counter and tells the guy's just standing back there watching the bags. So there's that reverse thing going there. And there's not a right or wrong to any of this, but I really wonder, is a woman really enjoying her man if she's in control of everything and making all the decisions and leading all the way? And is the guy ever going to penetrate the universe or penetrate her if he's just saying yes, dear, to everything that she says you're going to do? So, I think it wouldn't hurt for, the guys to get a little bit of a backbone and maybe grow some balls and maybe start saying, you know what? let's do it this way this time. No, let me lead. Get on the dance floor and say, let me lead.
100%.
And give her something to follow, because a woman can't follow where a man doesn't lead. Now, does a man have to lead all the time? No. Should the woman follow all the time? No. But if the guy doesn't ever lead, if he's never as masculine, how does she ever get to be in her feminine?
Exactly. I think that a lot of people.
Did you see all that coming?
Yeah, I mean, basically, I mean, it seems to be, I would say common sense, but it's really not anymore. Like the example you gave of the feminist teacher saying gender is a societal construct. If you give a boy a Cabbage Patch doll and you give a girl a truck at birth, they'll play with their toys and they'll do their thing. I think that a lot of people today conflate gender with the gender is a binary. You are either a boy or a girl, with some exceptions. But feminine and masculine, that's a complete spectrum. I am, if I had to put,
spectrum.
yeah, 100%. If I had to put a percentage on it, I'm probably 80% masculine because I love to get shit done. I love to, do all the man shit, but I also like to design my space. I like to have things be pretty and all this stuff. And my wife is probably the same. She likes to, be feminine and read her books and do her things, but she also likes to clean and do, get shit done and make her social media videos or whatever. I think that people
or the whatever. I like that.
Yeah, she does her thing, but most of the time it's what are we doing? And I have to go, okay, well, we're going here for dinner. We're staying at this hotel. We're going to go to this country. We're going to go to this city, all this stuff. I think that people would benefit a lot just getting more conscious about what they're where they land on the spectrum. Because I know some guys that are almost 100% masculine. They hate the design, pretty environment things. One of my buddies lives in a shipping container, literally. He has a bed in a shipping container, and he has a desk, and he has all of his guns and knives on a wall. It's literally, he's like, this is exactly what I need to survive. I got my guns and knives on the wall. I hunt for my food, and I live in a shipping container, and I fight on the weekends. And I'm like, that's fucking cool. I would never be able to do that. I need a cushy bed.
You need lamps and rugs, right?
Exactly. Yeah. I need to live in a luxury yurt at least. It needs to be a nice little tent situation. But I think it would benefit a lot of people just to know where they land on that spectrum and act accordingly. Right? Because if you are
the word conscious, you said it'd be good if people were conscious. Yes, when we're conscious, we can choose. And that's when things can be fluid. I can choose to hold my 3-month-old grandbaby. I can choose to spend time with my granddaughter. I can choose, to pass time with my stepdaughter. And I can choose to get online and do an interview with you and be in my masculine. I can choose to get up at 6 a.m. every morning like I've been doing and work on my book. I can choose to get to the gym and do the bodybuilding championship. If we have choice, we're not locked into gender. We're not locked into, well, you're a guy, you have to be this way. You're a girl, you have to be that way. But a lot of people, even though maybe they've rejected stereotypical gender stereotypes and roles, they're maybe still not choosing energetically what most lights them up and what most makes them happy. Because I'm like you. I mean, my office has wool rugs from Oaxaca, Mexico. I picked the colors that went into it, the furniture that's in it. Everything's got a memento. I've got art on the walls you can't see. So it's pretty. It's a pretty office, and I love it. And what you also can't see, well, you can see the Shure microphone, but I've got the Focusrite preamp. I got the cloud booster. I got dual monitors here. I got the iMac. I've got, the UPS power supply down there. I've got 2 lights over here. I've got everything technical to do my masculine role in my very feminine, comfortable, pretty, colorful office. So, yeah. It's cool to be able to choose and to flow back and forth to whatever makes you happy or lights you up, and nobody should be able to tell us we should or shouldn't be a certain way. But what I think what can what's happened is because a lot of young men have been raised by single moms, or their dads were nice guys and told them, don't piss off your mother. So you've taught to not rock the boat, be passive, let the woman be in charge. And a lot of women maybe didn't trust their dad. They've been told, go kick ass. And so almost like you've lost the choice. Oh yeah, she wants to be in charge, so I have to let her. Well, he's not going to make, the woman's going, he's not going to make a decision, so I have to. You're almost locked into just as rigid of a stereotype as guys do this, women do that, right? Boys do this, girls do that. You've gotten locked into that. You don't realize you have a choice, that the guy can show up and lead. The woman can say yes and follow. And then you can hand that off and she can make the decision and lead. And he goes, great. I love it when you do that. But it's all about consciousness, being able to make a conscious choice.
Absolutely. And if you know sort of where you sit on that spectrum, you can act accordingly. If you're a mostly masculine man, it would probably not
buy a shipping container by all means.
Exactly. It probably wouldn't feel great to have a super masculine woman trying to lead and do all of those things, because that's just not really how you have tended to be. But like you said, you can flow and you can change and all these things. You have freedom of choice rather than being locked into a specific role.
And I love freedom, and I love choice, and I love consciousness.
Absolutely, man. Just before we wrap up here, I have one final question. If all of your content, events, meetings, books, podcasts were erased from the internet and you only had the next 60 seconds to impart a message on the world, what's the most useful message you think that you could leave?
Oh my goodness. About 3 things popped into my head. Let's just go with the wisdom of the broken heart. Be willing to get your heart broken. Be willing to get your heart broken. Take a risk. Love deeply. Love fully. Love without reservation. And when you get hurt, get up and love again.
I love that, man. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been your guest, Dr. Glover. I'm Justin Butcher. This is the Life Transformation Podcast. Thank you so much for your time, man. I really appreciate it.
Justin, this was fun. Thank you.